Warning: this story contains graphic content, including rape, violence, and murder. Reader discretion is advised. Victoria Jenkins, a young Black City girl, was only 7 years old when her life took a devastating turn. She was brutally raped and beaten by her uncle, leaving her with physical and emotional scars that would haunt her forever. As she grew older, Victoria's trauma manifested into a dark and sinister force. She became a serial killer, targeting men who reminded her of her abuser. Her methods were calculated and ruthless, earning her the nickname V, also known as Vendetta among law enforcement. Victoria's killing spree spanned years, with bodies turning up in cities across the country. She was always one step ahead of the police, leaving behind only cryptic clues and a trail of blood. But Victoria's luck eventually ran out when she crossed paths with a fellow serial killer, a man known only as Soul. He was a master of manipulation, with a twisted game of cat and mouse in mind. Soul toyed with Vendetta, leaving her tantalizing clues and messages. He knew her past and exploited her weaknesses, drawing her into a deadly trap. In a heart-pumping, action-packed showdown, Vendetta faced off against Soul. But she was no match for his cunning and strength. In the end, Vendetta fell victim to the same violence that had driven her to kill. Soul stood over her lifeless body, a twisted smile spreading across his face. "Now you finally dead, I can be number one," he whispered, before disappearing into the project building of downtown Brooklyn, New York. The police found Vendetta's body, finally bringing an end to her reign of terror. But the question remained: what drives a person to become a monster? And can the cycle of violence ever truly be broken? 3 days later, as the news of Vendetta's death spread, a young detective named Nia Viction began to investigate her past, searching for answers to the questions that haunted her. She discovered Vendetta's childhood trauma and the events that led her to become a serial killer. Detective Viction couldn't help but feel a sense of empathy for Victoria, seeing herself in the young girl's story. She too had experienced trauma, and it had driven her to become a detective, seeking justice for victims like Victoria. Determined to understand the cycle of violence, Detective Viction delved deeper into the case, following a trail of clues that led her to Soul. But as she got closer, she realized that she was in grave danger. Soul was still out there, watching and waiting. Detective Viction knew she had to be careful, but she couldn't back down now. She was driven by a desire to bring justice to Vendetta and all the victims of Soul's twisted games. In a heart-stopping climax, Detective Viction confronted Soul, refusing to back down even as he threatened to chop her to pieces. But just as she thought she had the upper hand, Soul revealed a shocking secret: Nia Viction's own past was connected to his. Soul disappeared, leaving Detective Viction reeling. She knew she had to confront her demons now, to break the cycle of violence once and for all. Would she find the strength to overcome her past or become the next victim? Detective Viction's world was turned upside down as she grappled with the revelation. She thought she had left her past behind, but now it seemed to be inextricably linked to Soul's twisted games. Determined to uncover the truth, Nia dug deeper into her own history, seeking answers to questions she never knew to ask. She discovered a shocking connection to Vendetta's past, one that threatened to destroy everything she thought she knew about herself. As Nia, Detective Viction struggled to come to terms with her newfound identity, Soul reappeared, his presence more menacing than ever. He toyed with Viction, pushing her to confront the darkness within herself. In a desperate bid to break free from Soul's grasp, Nia turned to an unlikely ally, a former victim of Soul's, who had managed to escape his clutches. Together, they hatched a plan to take down Soul once and for all. But as they closed in, Nia realized that the line between good and evil was far more blurred than she had ever imagined. Soul's true identity was revealed, and Detective Viction was faced with a choice: to succumb to her own darkness or to rise above it. Would she find redemption, or would she become the very evil she sought to destroy? The final confrontation. Nia steeled herself for the final confrontation, knowing that her own demons would be her greatest challenge. She faced Soul, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent intensity that made her skin crawl. But as she looked into his eyes, Detective Vixen saw something that gave her pause. A glimmer of recognition, a hint of shared pain. Soul was no longer just a monster, he was a complex, tortured soul. With a newfound understanding, Nia reached out, her hand extended in a gesture of compassion. Soul hesitated, his grip on his weapon faltering. In that moment of hesitation, Nia saw her chance. She disarmed Soul, pinning him to the ground. But as she looked into his eyes, she knew she couldn't bring herself to deliver the final blow. Soul was taken into custody, his twisted games finally at an end. Nia, Detective Vixen, however, knew that her own journey was far from over. She had confronted her demons, but she knew that the darkness would always lurk within. With a newfound sense of purpose, Nia vowed to use her experiences to help others. She became a leading expert in criminal psychology, using her insights to rehabilitate victims and perpetrators alike. The cycle of violence had been broken, but Nia Vixen knew that the true challenge lay ahead. She had to confront the darkness within herself, every day, to ensure that she never became the evil she had once sought to destroy. 1 year later, Nia's story became a beacon of hope for those struggling with their own demons. Her courage and compassion inspired a new generation of advocates, working to break the cycle of violence once and for all. And though Soul's twisted games were over, Detective Nia Vixen knew that the true battle had only just begun. The battle for redemption, for forgiveness, and for the human soul. Like, share, comment if you was touched by this story. I also write stories for people. If you would like one, inbox me with your ideal story would be. If you know, you know.